grew up in Omaha, born in Omaha, went to Westside High School, went to University of Nebraska for college. Along the way, in high school, I decided I probably wanted to go to law school, and my parents were encouraging of me to stay in the state and practice in the state. After going to Nebraska for 4 years, which I loved, I wasn't sure I wanted to stay in Nebraska. And so I made a point of leaving the state to go to law school somewhere else, ended up being University of California. And I lived in the Bay Area for those 3 years and loved living in California, had a lot of friends in the Bay Area and a number who went back to LA to practice there where they were from typically. But I had a really good job offer back here in Omaha, and I had a girlfriend back here. And so I said to myself, all right, I'll take the California bar, which I did and passed and have always been licensed in California. But I said, if both the job and the girlfriend work out, I'll probably stay in Nebraska. But if either of them don't, I'm coming back. They both did. Robin and I have been married 40-some years, and the job was great and worked out and ended up leading to me coming here to Fraser Stryker a few years later. And so it was a really good start for me.
What was that first job? Was that a firm that no longer exists?
Right. It was a firm called White Lip, Simon & Powers. It was a business boutique law firm, and I wanted to practice business law. And my first two mentors were the senior partners there, Lou Lip and Ray Simon, who'd each been practicing a long, long time. And I really learned a lot of the basics from Ray and Lou. And interestingly, when I moved over here to Fraser Stryker after about 5 years, one of the junior partners here at this firm had also started at White Lip and worked with Lou and Ray, and his practice style and mine were similarly informed and established with that experience at that firm. So the move here was very comfortable for me.
How was business law practice back then? How'd that look in Omaha?
It was different in a number of different ways. One, you had more time to do things because there was not the immediacy of computers and the internet and email. And so if somebody sent you something to do, you could really say, oh, I haven't gotten it yet. Now, we didn't do that very often, but if you were really busy, you could say, you know, it hasn't come in today's mail. I'm sure it'll be here tomorrow. Well, then pretty quickly overnight mail got invented in the early 80s, and so people could then say, well, I overnight mailed that to you. I know you've got it. And so now you had to fess up and say, yeah, I got it, but I need a day or three to get to it. I'm really busy. I'm behind whatever. And you had to start really getting good at prioritizing your work. Prior to that, I think for decades, lawyers were able to kind of set their own timetable and agenda, and things that needed to get done did. And of course, litigation had somewhat more of an imposed schedule. But for business lawyers, you could kind of take your time. Reading leases could take weeks. Negotiating business transactions could take months. And technology began to impose on those time considerations and eventually led to us having to really be on top of things day to day to day rather than week to week.
Yeah.
In my early days of practice in the late 70s and early 80s, lawyers and clients were really separated and distant from one another, and lawyers gave their advice to clients and just sort of expected it to be followed. Clients didn't really ask very many questions. The relationship with one's lawyer began to evolve probably in the 70s and certainly in the 80s as I was getting into practice. And I kind of liked that, appreciated it. I liked having interaction with my clients, and I didn't mind explaining to clients why I was thinking what I was thinking, why I was recommending certain actions on their behalf. It wasn't what my mentors did and had learned to do, but it was consistent with the kind of person that I was and my understanding of the practice of law and people paying a fee and getting a result, but wanting more and more and more to understand the process that would lead to that result. So the increased communication between the client and her or his attorney throughout the 80s was consistent with how I wanted to establish my practice, and it worked well for me to gain a following of clients who wanted me to be their lawyer. It's interesting, MECA is now about 25 years in the making. It was, I think, 1997 when Hal Daub was elected mayor and sworn in, and I went to his swearing in, which was right over here at the courthouse, and he talked about his vision for Omaha having an arena and convention center downtown, and how we tried and failed, and previous mayors had made a good effort, but for a variety of reasons it hadn't worked out, but he was going to make it happen. And I walked away that night and I thought, you know, what a great vision. I'm a downtown person. When I had moved back to Omaha from California, I lived downtown. I was one of 15 or 18 people that lived downtown. I could walk to the office. I could go home for lunch. And I loved the downtown experience. And over the years, I've never lived west of 65th Street in Omaha. I've always lived east of 72nd. Confirmed downtown fan. So I said, what can I do to help Mayor Daub make this thing a reality? Well, I thought about it for a couple of days. It turned out that Fraser Stryker was working on our 100-year anniversary. The firm was founded in 1898, and in 1998, we were going to have a 100-year celebration. Of course, what do lawyers do for 100? Have a cocktail party for your clients. So the senior partners here were working on a big, cocktail party at a cool location. Well, I went to them and I said, hey, I'm not telling you don't have the cocktail party for clients and whatever, but how about if we do something for the community to acknowledge we've been here making a living for 100 years. Let's give something back. Let's volunteer to work on this arena convention center idea that Mayor Daub has. And my partners looked at me. I'm just a junior partner. And they said, why would we give away all kinds of it? I said, let me explain again. And they, okay. We can see giving some time to that, but that could be a lot of time. I said, it could be, but if it works, we could end up with a really significant client out of it. And they said, yeah, okay, whatever. You go do what you want to do. We're going to plan the cocktail party for our clients. I said, okay, fine. So I went to Mayor Daub and I said, hey, Fraser Stryker is going to volunteer to be pro bono counsel for you in this gigantic project. And Hal's a lawyer, and he looked at me and he said, okay, look, cut the crap. I'm a lawyer. What's the catch here, Bob? And I said, there's no catch. I said, it's a 100-year celebration. We've made a great living, dozens and dozens of lawyers, and we want to give something back to the community. This is something that prior efforts to get an arena built in Omaha have not had. There's a lot of legal issues. We want to help you solve them. He said, okay, what else? I said, I want to be at the head of the line when this thing goes live and you need lawyers. We want to be at the front of that line. You don't have to pick us, but we're going to be at the front of the line. He said, that's fair, that's reasonable, you're hired. Pro bono until I say otherwise. I said, that's the deal. And so we were on. And so literally, before he had even picked what became the Sokol Commission, I think he might have picked David at about the same time that I was meeting with him. But I was on board with David before the next 10 or 12 people were picked to be on the initial study commission here in Omaha. And so we were pro bono for literally a couple of years, but then when it became a real thing, Mayor Dobb and David Sokol said, we need lawyers. You guys know everything there is to know. You've done all this work. And at that point, it was probably 6 figures worth of pro bono legal work. It really was a huge effort, but it made a significant difference. And we were in and have represented MECA ever since. So that's been 20-some years.
That was truly a Hail Mary that worked out. That was great. Wow. I love it. You took a risk, and it really did benefit you and the community.
Right, and I say that as a way of encouraging other lawyers in our community to think about opportunities like that. And I can give you a couple other examples where you put in a little bit of your time, and it can be a little, and that happened to be a lot, but there was a good excuse for it being a lot in that circumstance. It was a huge project. It was 100-year. It just happened to be a confluence of factors that led to that working. But all of us can, when we have the time and ability, give a little bit of time to put into whatever project it might be that our community is undertaking, and we lawyers can make a huge difference doing that. And there's no question that on this Arena Convention Center project, that having lawyers involved from day one, helping to look at all of the complex issues that involved real estate and contracts and environmental issues on the site that had to be cleaned up, and how to get it approved and how to put entities together that would manage and oversee it, and how the entities might relate to the city. The county was a potential partner. There was legislation the state had to create to do it, financing, all needed lawyers to be involved. And so our involvement from day one really helped make a difference.
Yeah.
Right.
It continues.
The public-private partnership that was established was really modeled on a couple of other pre-existing public-private partnerships that Omaha had done. You can think about the zoo being one of those, where a lot of the zoo is on land owned by the city of Omaha, and originally the zoo was city-run, and later it became privately managed and operated. But it's a public-private partnership, and the city has always continued to support it financially. Similarly, the performing arts in Omaha are really a public-private partnership of sorts. And so what we did with MECA to operate the Arena Convention Center, later added the ballpark, now we've added the Downtown Parks project that's $300 and some million worth of investment by the city and private philanthropists in the community. Again, partnering between the city and a private enterprise that's not for profit, not in it to make money, though well operated, and we hire private managers to work for the corporation. It's just been a great formula for Omaha and has led to us being very successful in a lot of different areas. And it's really led our private philanthropy community to be willing to put that money into traditionally public projects that oftentimes in most other cities don't attract that kind of private money because they don't want to give it to a city or county or state to spend the money because it's just not well managed. Here it has been, and so it's been a great track record we've had in our community for stewardship.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you a little bit, and then you're welcome to ask me more questions. Sure. Obviously, this one I could go on and on and on about. It started in the fall of 2005, and it kind of started with me having sort of it's kind of strange to say a dream. And I'm not someone who dreams a lot and gets up and, has inspirations. But one Saturday morning, I woke up and there were just a lot of ideas in my head that I didn't know where they came from. I literally grabbed a legal pad and a pen, and my wife was still asleep, and I got up, threw on some clothes, and I went for a long walk. Ended up walking to a coffee store about 1.5 miles away, and I was filling legal pages with notes of things that were not my own thoughts, that somehow had been put in my head. And as I was coming back, I literally bumped into I'm Jewish, I bumped into my rabbi at Temple Israel at 70th and Cass, and he saw me with a pen and paper and a cup of coffee at that point, and he said, what are you doing, Bob? It's 8 o'clock in the morning. What? And I said, this is too weird, I can't even tell you. He said, you have to tell me. I said, well, it relates to you, and I need a few days to pull all this together. And he said, okay, look, I trust you, but I'm going to give you a little bit of time, but I want to know what you're thinking and what you're scribbling down on this pad of paper you're carrying around early on a Saturday morning. I said, give me a couple of days, I promise, I will get back to you. And so I got home, I finished writing out my notes, and I had 15 pages of legal pad notes about this idea of Jews, Christians, and Muslims doing something together. And somehow the thoughts that I had were very, very specific. I didn't even know anyone of the Muslim faith at that point in my life. And I was married to an Episcopal woman, we had kids, and I'm Jewish, and I thought, okay, Jews and Episcopals, great, but Muslims, I don't know where these ideas are coming from. Anyway, a couple days later, I called Rabbi Azrael up, and I said, okay, I'm ready to talk, you're not going to believe this. And we got together, and I downloaded to him what I had been thinking about, and he said, I love it, let's do it. And I said, okay, who do we call first? He said, the Muslims. I said, why? He said, because they're the hardest to put anything together with. Nobody knows them, and we have no experience with them. I said, do you know any Muslims? He said, no, I kind of do, but I know who to call. So we reached out. We had a meeting with a group of the Muslim leaders in Omaha a couple months later. After a preliminary meeting with one guy, we had a group meeting at the Benson Library with Rabbi and I and one intermediary and about 5 or 6 gentlemen from the Muslim community. And I remember walking out of there thinking, these guys are smart, they are motivated, they seem to want to do something with the Jewish community. And if the Jews and Muslims can get along, and it's just one meeting, but it's a good start, surely we'll find a Christian church or community that wants to be a part of this. Little did I know how difficult that would turn out to be, but that was a huge step in the right direction. And then we had meetings with different Christian leadership groups in the community. Ultimately, the Episcopal Diocese was in for a long time, and for years we worked with them. Later on, they ended up handing off to Countryside Community Church, who said, thank you for carrying the ball nearly to the goal line. We'll carry it the rest of the way. We'll get across the goal line. We will raise the money, build a church, and move from 87th and Pacific to this site. Searching for a site was complicated and lots of stories to tell there, but we obviously ended up at the old Highland Country Club golf course site, which had been a Jewish country club that had folded. And we went to the people who bought the land at the auction that the bank had, and we said, hey, if you need to put some community use pieces into your development, we have 3 religious buildings that would like to go there. They knew they needed to do something like that. They were very receptive to the idea and have been great partners as we've since developed Temple Israel out there, and then the mosque, and then Countryside Community Church, and then lastly we opened an interfaith center there it opened right at the beginning of COVID.
I was going to ask,
and
yeah.
we really haven't been able to have the kinds of things there that we have always envisioned, but soon we will. Sure. So it's really complicated on a lot of levels, but it's very simple. My concept always was, if you're going to have a church, a synagogue, and a mosque together, each has to be very autonomous, and each has to be completely free and motivated to do its own thing for its own religious congregants. Because if you're only trying to do things together, pretty soon the congregants are going to say, hey, I'm here because I'm Christian, I want a church to go to, I need to practice my faith at the church, and all you're caring about is doing stuff with the Jews and Muslims, and I need basic Christian faith. And that would work in each of the 3. So we've been strongly encouraging from day one that each faith focus first on your own congregants. Yes, each pays attention to, and there's a large chunk of each population that wants to have the interfaith stuff that is possible. And we've done and will continue to do some really neat, groundbreaking interfaith stuff. And eventually we will be able to reach out to other communities. We already have a little bit, but we'll do a lot more. And this will be a model for potentially other communities. There's nothing like it in the United States. There's literally nothing in the world like what Omaha has accomplished here in deliberately co-locating a church, a synagogue, and a mosque together, and then putting an interfaith center there too. $60 or $70 million has been raised and spent to build the buildings. Now it's up to the people running each of the 3 congregations to make sure their own congregation succeeds, and then you can have a little bit of time and energy and hopefully money to spend working together on various things. So true. Certainly before each of the faith groups was going to commit some millions of dollars to building a building next door to 2 other faiths that are different than theirs, they had to have some confidence that you could talk to and work with the people from those other communities. And that was true all the way around. And we had practice doing really tough things. For example, the Middle East peace process and the constant conflict between Israelis and Arabs in the Middle East. We have had occasion where when that has flared up, we have had people get together, and we have had the people of the different faiths here in Omaha talk and argue and wrestle and work things out, and then we've been able to accommodate one another enough that we could issue some kind of joint statement. Sometimes they've appeared in the Omaha World Herald, sometimes they've been on the television news, sometimes it's been a little bit more private, sometimes we've written a letter. But so far, because we have a basis of getting along and working with each other on a lot of different things, even these virtually impossible issues, we can at least talk about them. And we may not agree on them, but we can reach some consensual middle ground on many of them.
It's about understanding universal humanity, universal kindness, love, and we're all on this earth, right?
Right. Just having that basic respect for one another, which we have here in Omaha between the different faith groups, and you wish you could just inject a little bit of that into some of the people in other parts of the world. Just be patient, listen, stop arguing, listen, make your point, agree to disagree, but don't pick up guns.
Yeah, listening before talking is, I think attorneys can also benefit from that from time to time, right?
It's one of the things that I learned early on when you talk about the skills that we lawyers need to acquire. One of the things that I preach to the young lawyers, whether they're in this firm or otherwise, that I have an opportunity to is, we're all real good at talking. Learn how to listen. Sometimes just be able to close your mouth, don't talk, see what other people say. You can gain a lot of information when you're not talking. It's hard to gain information when you are talking. So sometimes just listen. And I encourage lawyers to get a little bit better at that skill. It happens to be a part of who I am. I also think, Dave, that lawyers, by us having chosen this as a profession, that the skills that we pick up, some of which we have, some of which we learn in law school, many of which we acquire as young lawyers and maturing lawyers, are the kinds of skills that are so valuable in so many different areas. And I understand that some of us have other complexities in our lives. It can be health, it can be family members, parents, kids, what have you. But for those of us who are lucky enough to have a little bit of extra time and energy, I'm a huge advocate for giving a little bit back based on what you have available to give. It could be an hour a week or an hour a month, and for some of us who have a little more luck in our lives with our family situations and work situations, it can be a couple of hours a week. Whatever it is, I'm a big advocate for giving something back and helping make the community or some part of it that you care about a little bit better for your having been here and having had an opportunity to do that.
The power that we have, whether or not we recognize it, right, is truly amazing. Yeah.
When I was a really young lawyer, I had people who encouraged me to get involved and do things, and I did a little bit of that, and I always felt like as much as I was getting back even more. And so I was able to make a difference for things and start some things with my legal skills and the connections that I had that were very fulfilling for me, but I know that they made a lot more difference for other people, and that made me feel good and incented me and encouraged me, okay, that worked, Freeman. So next time you got an extra hour or 3, if you can give a little bit more time, that could pay dividends as well. And I've done a number of things throughout my career, and I've always been very proud of them privately, not needed recognition for that, but I know that we lawyers can make a real difference when we can make a little bit of time to give to help make a difference with a project, an activity, or an organization. The law practice has certainly evolved, and the technological changes have been a big factor in that. But also, our law practice doesn't change as much and as fast as a lot of the rest of society. And so a lot of the basic skills that served me and my contemporaries well back in the early years are still the same today. You have to be a good communicator. You have to be able to write effectively. You have to be able to listen effectively. If you're just talking and arguing and never picking up information from the other side, you're not going to be nearly as effective for your client as you could be. Writing is still an important skill and something that I continue to work on with younger lawyers here in my firm. So there's a lot that's changed, but there's a lot of the basics that are very similar today.
Yeah.
As far as the community and where Omaha has gotten to and where we're going, I think very positive things have happened and are probably going to continue happening. We are really blessed in Omaha to have a fairly wealthy community and one that is very philanthropic. And we have a number of role models for success in the philanthropic community and world that has only incented people who have done well in our community to continue giving back an appropriate amount of money and reinvesting that in the community. And with the investment in downtown Omaha that we've seen in recent years, and $300 and some million in our downtown parks project, and the recent announcement by Mutual of Omaha to not leave Omaha, not go out west, but actually move from 35th and Dodge to downtown Omaha. Huge investment, great commitment by them. Just one more thing that will re-energize downtown and lead to hopefully decades more of commitment to the downtown and in making this a great place to live and to work as well. Yeah, so I'm trying to create a little more of that downtime now, and traveling is important. I have one daughter who lives here, but one in the Bay Area and one in Chicago, so spending a little more time with them, and then with the little kids that my girls are having is important. I do enjoy golfing, and I played a lot of neat, fun golf courses around the country, around the world. I try to go over to the old country, Ireland and Scotland, every couple of years and play with some friends over there. And I've played a lot of the great old courses that helped found the game over there. And just staying in reasonable shape and spending more and more time with friends is going to be on my priority list. And then, maybe there's one more interesting or big project out there that I could devote a little bit of time and a little bit of shoulder strength towards making happen in the world.
Oh, that's great. Bob, thank you so much for the time. Is there anything that I missed that, the softball question that you wanted me to ask here?
You have been very thorough, Dave, very comprehensive. I don't think you missed anything. You
all right.
touched on all the important things.
Thank you so much for the
Thanks.
time. Appreciate it.
Enjoyed it.